John. So how many roads does a man have to walk down?
What?
Never mind. We got Ron on today. Come on.
Oh, hey, Ron.
Welcome to St. Louis, guys.
I miss you guys out there. It's been too long.
Well, we miss you too. We miss everybody.
Oh, yeah. No. You can't make it not special about me now.
Yeah, it has been, like I said, it's been a month or 3 months of Mondays at this point. So looking forward to at some point in time getting some kind of positive news that it's getting towards the end of something. So we'll say though, right?
I'm excited to get on a plane when all of this is over. I think John finally is even aching to be on the road again.
That is for sure. That's for sure. Although I don't know how it's going to be with hearing Delta and American are no longer serving alcohol. You have to wear a mask on the plane. So traveling's definitely going to be different. I'll tell you that.
But I think I did hear though they're going to be serving hand sanitizer, right? Ron, Do you have some hand sanitizer that the airlines might be serving?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll bring that over. This is the locally produced here by Naked Spirits Distillery, 80% alcohol.
Nice.
So it sanitizes your hands as well as your guts.
Exactly. It's an alcohol antiseptic, 80% alcohol. So
yes, please.
And it was produced by Naked Spirits Distillery. So
that's pretty similar to the stuff Finn normally drinks anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Mine's just been oak aged. I mean, when they start selling oak aged hand sanitizer, you know something's up.
Yeah, then you're in business there.
You can even take your mask off with this, drink it. It's all good at that point.
It's effective and delicious. We've been asking everybody, trying to understand what's happening in the market, especially for lighting designers. A lot of people have been busy, but the landscape's changing in terms of the jobs, the scopes, and the outlook. So what have you been seeing?
When we started seeing all the shutdowns happening, certainly our first recollections went back to 2008. We were relatively heavy in retail at that point in our consultancy here, and I think that we recognized that a number of things were happening before that downturn actually happened, because a number of our retail clients started just clamming up in 2008. And it just all of a sudden everything shut down. Nothing was going on. Conversely, on this one, from the point of the shutdown, everything seemed to just keep rolling along as normal.
Now, late June, what's the trajectory been like in the St. Louis area? We have, obviously we try and get all different markets involved in the coffee talk. And for St. Louis, like New York now has been so shut down for so long, and we're hoping to continue opening back up. But right now, this week, we're seeing other places spike. So they may reevaluate how they're doing. And how's it been in St. Louis right now?
We're in St. Louis, St. Louis City and St. Louis County. Both had shutdowns that were more rigorous than the rest of the state in early March or mid-March when that happened. Most of the construction projects, though, from what I could see, just kept moving forward. From the St. Louis standpoint, I think that people are a little bit more optimistic, perhaps, than in other areas. Maybe foolishly so. Time will find out, I suppose. But certainly in mid-America states like this, there's been a bit more of a laissez-faire attitude towards the COVID crisis than perhaps more populous states.
Working remotely, have there been a lot of challenges in terms of you guys being able to work and design as a team, or has it been pretty smooth?
It's been pretty smooth. Obviously, there were some learning curves that were associated with it right off the bat, especially since it happened so quickly. I would say within a relatively short time frame, we were relatively comfortable with making sure that the design, especially the collaboration portion of the design, which is the hardest part, right? We all want to just sit down at a table and take a look at a space and say, what do you think about this? And you want to do this, or you want to do that, or you want to do this. That's a little harder. I think what made anything harder was not so much the collaboration portion or even the flow of work portion. What was probably harder is the fact that every project now had a Zoom meeting that lasted 3 to 4 hours every day. And you just felt that you were constantly on this kind of platform. And it was difficult from that standpoint.
Yeah.
And it still continues to be difficult from that standpoint.
What are you trying to say, Ron?
What's interesting about it too is that not only are we doing this kind of thing, which is great to be able to interact with people such as yourselves, the manufacturers out there. So we have that level of interaction. You have the interaction with clients that you were normally doing. And of course, all of us are missing just the normal social component to this. So there are any number of, I guess, happy hours that are going on out there at some point in time where we're all on the phone just having an opportunity just to check in with the rest of our peers or the rest of our friends on how everything is going with them. So that time frame made it a bit more challenging.
So how are you staying connected with some of your friends and colleagues in the industry?
So there are, as I said, there are a number, some happy hour calls that we'll have that have been where people are invited to come and join, and you just have a cocktail for an hour and just talk that through. Last evening was the IALD Awards presentation. And it was a platform that was located on both YouTube and Facebook. And while you couldn't interact, obviously, in this kind of format, there was a chat level going on, so you got to see what other people were saying about the projects, and that was kind of fun. And then there were, I'm sure, a number. I participated in one. There were a number of watch parties that were out there as well, where people were on the watch party and taking a look at it from that standpoint as well.
You normally have a room full of people, and right now you have the worst possible alternative, which is nobody in a single space.
Did you have
to pull it off?
So no, it was I thought, especially considering that it had to be pulled together quickly, I thought it was done incredibly well. There was a platform that was provided, an initial kind of video that introduced the awards, which I thought was well done. And then just like we're doing right now, there were components that were provided that, provided, I suppose, that allowed the two hosts of the show to go ahead and present the projects. They did it remotely. There were a couple of guest appearances that came on that were also remote as well. Some of this obviously was pre-taped. And there were a couple of projects where the design team actually came on for a few seconds just to say thank you. I thought that was nice. There were a fair number of awards, and I'm sure a lot of us think about that from the standpoint of the normal award show. When you have 20 plus awards, that can make it for quite a long evening. But the format last evening, all 20 projects were presented in less than an hour, and
wow.
Right.
This may be the future of the award ceremony.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not a bad
I'm not saying that is or not, but it certainly was different. That's for sure. The thing that I also recognized from the awards last night was that I thought the level, the quality level of the projects that were presented was really outstanding. Beautiful projects. And when you're putting it on in that kind of format, I think that it was, again, thinking about it from the standpoint of a short time frame to pull it together, I thought it was incredibly well done. People were very positive on the chat level. And pretty much, I want to say there were at least 150 or so people that provided at least one comment on the chat. So it seemed to be well attended. I don't know what the actual numbers were, but it seemed to be very well attended. And obviously those awards are still on. I mean, you can go to YouTube or Facebook and find the awards on there. So the whole presentation has now been, it's permanent, right? So it's out there. You're able to go watch the presentation. Once we're done here, gives you something to do the rest of the day.
I mean, we're joking about how this might change. I mean, obviously, once we get back to some level of normal, we're all going to want to be in a room and we're going to want to have that collective experience. But what do you think we're going to take away from what we're doing now into the future?
I still think from a collaborative process, while this is a relatively, I think, an okay platform from which to do a collaboration, I think it's still better for us all to be in a room and have that dialogue that is much easier to control than what can happen on this kind of at least currently in this kind of a platform.
Ron, I mean, as you're talking, I'm sitting here realizing that the one of the last times I was with, a crew of people from the industry was with you in Carolina at the retirement party, and at the end of February, and we were still talking about light and build potentially. And,
Right.
I sit there and think that if we knew it was probably one of the last times before everything was shut down, it would have been a much crazier party too, when it was crazy enough as it was. But, what
that was the last time I was on a plane, as a matter of fact. That was it. That was the last time.
Yeah. And so as I'm thinking, we're kind of talking about this. How do you think, I mean, talking about light and build, and I know a lot of designers use light and build as a great place to see what's new and inspiration for design, things like that. And I ask a lot of people we have on here about this, but how do you think that this whole COVID scenario and everything, how is that going to impact design moving forward? If anything you see so far or feel, well, it's tough to see the future, of course, but how do you think it could impact it?
There are so many things that influence how you look at the world creatively. Obviously, you just mentioned light and build, things like Light Fair. Those are all really great platforms, at least in my estimation, to go to try and see what other kinds of thoughts are out there from a manufacturing standpoint and even from a design standpoint. And how can you envelop those ideas and expand upon those ideas and take those ideas to perhaps another level or in a different direction. Those kinds of insights are so, in my estimation, so important. Having a manufacturer from that kind of thing show us a product online, it's interesting. Don't get really to touch it. You don't get to really feel what it's like. So from our standpoint on those kinds of things where we're looking at specific products from a creative standpoint, really look forward to having you come back into the office so that we can have those kinds of interactions with both the product and with you. So that component is important. I was thinking about it this morning. I've been getting up very early in the mornings to go out for a walk. And what's been amazing to me, and I change paths, I change directions in which I go down a street a different direction. And it always amazes me that each time I go out, I see something different, either that I didn't see before, or because I came in a different direction, I saw it in a different way. And how you interact, I think, with your universe is one of the things that I believe is important to the creative process. And right now, we're not all out there interacting with our universe. And I look forward to getting back into that world where we can go out and feel comfortable going out. Much rather be in a room with you guys having a conversation than looking at you with a camera. So from a creative standpoint, I think that we've been compressed a little bit at the moment, which makes it a little bit more difficult to handle or discuss things in a more creative or collaborative way. But again, this is something that may just evolve and we all figure out how best to handle it. And I think that's what we're in right now is a giant evolution, and we're not all sure where it's going to end. And some of us will evolve faster than others. But we're all going to end up at something that becomes the new normal. And hopefully it's a positive thing.
You know, us being a manufacturer and St. Louis being such I feel important market in our industry for especially lighting design, and with your office and so many other great offices there, what do you think as like manufacturers? And it's a tough thing to say, but what can we do to support, you know, designers as things change and kind of get back to normal, but may not? And, you know, obviously sales calls and things like that are different. It's not as easy just to do a lunch and walk in and spend time and catch up. But what can manufacturers do to help the designers? Because everyone is so close in this industry.
Because we're now inundated with Zoom meetings from a client level, we need to limit how many manufacturers we get to see each week. Otherwise, that will begin to consume us even as much as the Zoom meetings from a client standpoint are. Some manufacturers have been much more proactive in making sure that they maintain some level of contact with us or some level of communication with us, probably better than some others have. Part of that may be, again, as I say, regionally driven. Some of that may be that some manufacturers are just in a better shape to do that. But as much as we can get that collaborative component, again, I know I use that word a lot, but I think what's important is to have this kind of dialogue so that we know you're still there. Obviously, you're somebody that we've dealt with a lot in the past. We want to continue to work with groups like you in the future, and just your presence. Even if we have to say, or John, Finn, or we can't talk to you this week, but thanks for reaching out. That's a positive, right? At least we know you're there. As new products come out, and this I think is one of the harder things that probably is most difficult for you, is that if you are introducing a new product, it was easy for you previously, fly in, I'm going to stay in St. Louis for a couple of days, go see a number of people, show them this widget, and that you can't do as much now. I think that if you, one of the things that we would like to be able to do is, as stated earlier, we always want to handle the widget. I am consistently ridiculed here in the office that whenever somebody brings me an item in, that I tend to break it. But you know, if as much as possible, if you're going to introduce a widget, it would be great to get the widget in and be able to talk to you about it while we're holding it in our hands.
You want everybody to be back together. You want to touch stuff and not be isolated. But if you had to pick one thing out of all of this that you think was maybe a benefit that should happen, that we should carry forward, what do you think you'd pick?
Again, I think if you look at it from an evolution standpoint, we're all adapting. So if there's a positive out of it, it's always fun to see how human adaptation goes on. And we've done a really good job of that adaptation. And I think that's a positive thing. I think we've all been really quite positive, regardless of what you see on Facebook or on the news. We've all been relatively positive with each other, at least within our industry. I think those things are all positive components moving forward. I also think that it's really nice that everybody's sanitizing their hands better than they did before.
You know, when you're not on of course, everyone knows the endless Zoom meetings, and you're not using your 160 proof hand sanitizer. What are you up to in your free time?
Pretty much our standard operating procedure is, at the end of the day, at some point in time, I come home and we're out on the deck, and each of us is got a cocktail, and we're able to download what's gone on for the day. Some of that has been a lot different and a lot better.
Ron, your son he's in college and had to come home, and now he's home enjoying these cocktail hours and drinking all your beer, if I remember correctly.
That is correct. He does a pretty good job of that. Yeah, he came home mid-March as well. He's studying to become, he's hoping to get into the architecture program at the University of Missouri. We'll find that out here in a couple of weeks if he's been accepted into the program. I'm really looking forward to, home growing a client is what I'm trying to do here, and hopefully it'll be a good thing for him.
Thanks so much for coming on, Ron. We really appreciate you taking the time and getting on another Zoom call and suffering through here with us. So thank you.
It was a lot of fun, actually. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad to see both of you guys. So,
yeah, thanks so much, Ron. Great to see you, and great to hear from you.
Make sure you keep in touch with us. And
well, at the very least, I'll be there for your hand sanitizer. So
you can take a bath in it. Plenty.
All right.
Take care, guys.
Take care, Ron. Thank you.
Look at this.
I'm not really going to serenade you guys. I'm going to hit like one chord as we're recording.
Oh, no. Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
That's probably actually really tough to do on the guitar.